see you share my enthusiasm for our subject.
Dr. Whalen.
Mrs. Powell.
I share your enthusiasm, but not your point of view. Most of the scientific community supports you, and the trustees of this university support you. Your book's been on the bestseller list for months, and I even bought a copy for myself.
But you want your money back.
Your institute is trying to isolate sexuality, treating it as something separate, completely apart from the rest of a human personality. Well, I say you can't. I think to try could be dangerous. Sexuality is meaningful only in relation to all the other aspects of a human being.
Mrs. Powell, we are many things. At least we've been called many things. But we're not sexual isolationists. We want to see sexuality accepted as just another one of the many natural human functions, as natural as breathing. But the problem is, in this society, very often it isn't. Now, we're not trying to teach sexuality as a separate thing. We're trying to encourage the acceptance of sexuality as a natural part of the total human condition. It is now 10 minutes after 1, so how about a lunch break? I'm glad you brought the point up, because it is important.
Dr. Whalen.
Oh, I certainly enjoyed it.
Yes.
Howard Porter, I wonder if I might have a minute of time to discuss something personal with you?
Well, I'm pretty busy right now. If it's personal, we should set up a meeting, okay?
Doctor, I'm an attorney. I represent Kay Lackner. Mrs. Ben Lackner, you know her?
Yes.
She and her husband were volunteers at your institute.
Yes, I said I know Kay and Ben. Why, what's the problem?
Quite a problem, I'm afraid, Doctor. In a word, seduction.
I'm afraid you've lost me.
Mrs. Lackner came to my office this morning, Doctor. She was very upset. She claims that you used your professional position, your privileged knowledge of her, to seduce her into an affair.
That's ridiculous.
Is it?
Yes.
Mrs. Lackner is very disturbed, Doctor. She claims that this affair has affected her marriage, has, in effect, destroyed her marriage. And she's suing you, Doctor, and your sex institute, for $250,000.
She's an attractive woman.
Yeah. Her husband.
Good-looking couple.
Owen, I can't believe it.
In all these years of handling emotional TNT, Charlie, the possibility of an explosion must have occurred to you.
Oh, sure. There've been tears, threats, all the usual problems any analyst has with transference. And this sort of accusation is always a hazard. But what I can't believe is that somebody like Kay Lackner would make it.
She and her husband were volunteers.
All of our subjects are.
They obviously were having problems.
Well, after 9 years of marriage, lots of couples have problems. Even couples like Kay and Ben, who started out as what I like to call pure romantics. You know, the double band wedding rings with the special inscriptions, all that nice jazz. When I first met them, there didn't seem to be anything specifically wrong, just a sort of vague reaching out for something more.
Was volunteering her idea or his?
Now, Ben suggested it, and Kay said, sure, why not? We worked together for about 5 months.
Always together? I mean, the three of you?
Well, sometimes together, sometimes with each of them individually.
Did you feel you should help them?
No! Ben is a very open guy, no inhibitions. And Kay seemed to love him deeply at a mind level. Physically, she sort of built a wall around herself.
Were you able to diagnose why?
To a point. I told her I thought she was afraid of making a total commitment to Ben, or anyone.
Charlie, what were their attitudes when they quit the Institute?
They were very honest about it. They came into this office one afternoon and said they were both discouraged. I tried to get them to reconsider, but they'd had it with the Institute, and I guess with me. And then today, her attorney pops up out of nowhere. You seduced Kay, Dr. Whalen. You broke up Kay's and Ben's marriage. Ben found out about the affair and he split.
Is he filing for divorce?
No, but they're separated.
Charlie, I have to ask you this. Is there any basis for a claim?
Owen, I'm a doctor and I'm a man. There've been a few times when a patient has turned me on, okay? So clinically and practically, I call in one of my colleagues and I hand him the woman's file and I say, okay, buddy, take over. That never happened with Kay.
And you never saw her outside the Institute?
No. But of course, she claims I did. And that's just what all the people who've been trying to put us out of business have been waiting for. Sex doctor named Seducer. And pow.
Well, you are vulnerable, Charlie. That's why her lawyer is pushing for an out-of-court settlement.
We'd avoid the publicity. And the reputation of the Institute wouldn't be attacked.
And you'd be paying blackmail. And blackmail very rarely stops with the first payment.
Charles?
In here. Oh, and I'd rather she didn't find out yet.
Owen, were you part of the symposium?
You sound surprised, Julia. Don't you think I can qualify as one of your husband's experts?
Owen dropped by to talk over a little legal problem the Institute may be bugged with.
We'll be in touch, Charlie.
Thanks.
Bye.
Good to see you, Julia.
What legal problem, darling?
It's small and boring and nothing for you to worry about.
So the old Chinese puzzle box gag.
No, it's the genuine thing, or nearly. Stan brought it back from San Francisco. You're supposed to open the secret drawer. Would you like a challenge, Mr. Brandon?
Well, what's a day without a few real challenges, Mrs. Graff?
I'm due at Kay Lackner's in 20 minutes. Do either of you turn up anything helpful?
Well, I found out the Lackners came to Santa Barbara 4 years ago from Philadelphia. And they're very popular. But definitely not on welfare. They gave a lot of big parties, went to a lot of big parties, but well, they still don't seem to have very many close friends.
Oh, they both worked in the community theater. According to the director, Ben Lackner had a natural flair, and Kay, his wife, had, and I quote, a great stage presence, but came off a little cold, end of quote.
I'd guess Shakespeare. In fact, I'd guess Twelfth Night.
Much ado about nothing. But you didn't come here to discuss Shakespeare, Mr. Marshall.
All right, Mrs. Lackner, I'll get right to the point. My client repudiates your accusation.
Naturally.
I'm sure you've considered what he has at stake. His good name, a lifetime's work, the future of the Institute.
Well, I have plenty at stake, too. I mean, what about my future without my husband? I have to get something out of this. Even for my own sanity. Well, I don't want to be unreasonable or vindictive. I'm quite willing to settle this out of court.
That seems inconsistent.
What do you mean?
Well, if your case is an honest one, I'd think you'd want to take it to court. Taking money in return for silence seems out of character.
Mr. Marshall, you've only known me 2 minutes. I mean, what could you possibly know about my character?
Very little right now.
That sounds ominous.
In a lawsuit, the deciding factor is often the character of the accused weighed against the character of the accuser.
So, you have to destroy me to save him.
The question before the court will be, is Charles Whalen guilty of malpractice? Or is it possible that the plaintiff is a liar?
The question doesn't have to go to court. The Institute is covered by malpractice insurance.
It's not that simple.
You've advised Whalen to fight?
No decision's been made yet. It's still time for reevaluation on both sides.
Well, I have nothing more to say to you, Mr. Marshall.
Mrs. Lackner, how does your husband feel about what you're doing?
I haven't consulted Ben about this or anything else. We're separated.
I'd say it looks as if there's still some hope.
No, not hope. Just habit.
Well, what can I tell you? Kay's suing Whalen, not me.
But you're involved, Mr. Lackner.
Yeah, I am. I'm really sorry things went south between Kay and me. We had a good thing together for a lot of years.
Something so good ought to be worth saving.
You married?
No, that's why I've got all the answers.
Well, try and put yourself in my place. Things are fine, real fine with you and your wife. But you care, so you try and make things better. You even suggest outside help.
Dr. Whalen?
Mm-hmm. Now, she's not at all anxious. She's even a little embarrassed. But you insist, so she agrees. A few months later, you find out she's had an affair with the expert. Not only have you been had, but you're the schnook that set it up. Now, what would you do?
Splitting was your answer. Now your wife's out for blood. Dr. Whalen's.
From now on, what Kay does is her own business. If she'd asked me, I'd have told her I thought she was letting herself in for a lot of nasty publicity.
Yeah, but you'll figure as a key witness.
Well, if the suit comes to court, yeah.
Right.
Well, I'll just take things as they come. But right now, I'm digging in here. I like Ojai. New friends, a new life. Now, if I have to go to Santa Barbara to testify, I will. As far as I'm concerned, for now, this is where the action is.
When I told her lawyer there'd be no out-of-court settlement, he tried to convince me that it was foolish to expose you to the scandal of a trial.
And Porter said they're definitely filing the suit?
No, he has to discuss your position with Kay Lackner.
Owen, have we made the right move?
We've made the only move, Charlie.
Sex doctor found not guilty, pure as snow, but can we prove it? Kay would make a very impressive witness. I'm not going to kid myself about that.
She could be. She's attractive, bright. She's not all that cool.
What do you mean?
I mean that for a very determined young woman, righteous, wronged, I shook her up quite a bit by suggesting that her willingness to accept a quiet payoff seemed uncharacteristic.
Uncharacteristic? That's what's so really weird about this, Owen. What I got to know about her during 5 months of intensive probing, questions and answers, whys and becauses, if I had to imagine a nightmare like this and pick a Kay, it wouldn't have been Kay. It couldn't have been.
Yes. I see. Yeah. Thank you. That was Jess at the courthouse. Howard Porter has just filed suit against you. Kay Lackner has raised the ante to $500,000.
Romantic things I ever heard.
And the court knows that this witness is the undisputed authority on romance and the romantic.
Don't you think it's romantic?
Well, it seems a little hammy to me. Getting married on stage in Shakespearean costume. How does it strike you?
Well, it's not my idea of the perfect wedding, but then it beats some others I've read about. Up in a helicopter, on the Brooklyn Bridge, on a merry-go-round.
The Lackners met when they were working at a community playhouse. They fell in love when they were playing the lovers in a Shakespeare comedy.
And make-believe became reality.
Well, I think it was perfectly appropriate and very romantic.
This may shock our resident romantic, Jess, but did you dig up anything at all that would indicate that the marriage was on the rocks before they went to the Institute?
Nothing. And I dug. The group the Lackners knew best has a reputation of being fast. But everyone agrees that Kay and Ben were faithful to each other. Some of the guys admitted they tried to come on with her, but struck out.
So the plaintiff will argue that Charlie Whalen was an exception only because of his unethical advantage.
Oh, Mr. Marshall, here's the list you asked for. It has the names of all the people who volunteered for the Institute.
Thanks, Frida.
Yes, Jess?
Frida, did you ever get your keys out?
My nephew Marty had that box open in about 30 seconds.
Marty, is he the kid whose graduation you went to last month?
No, that's Morty. Morty is Stella and Basil's son. Marty is Harriet and Richard's little boy.
Yeah, well, how little?
6.
6?
Well, he's going on 7.
Oh, well, why didn't you say so? Go ahead.
This is quite a list.
Well, the subject of sex has been known to have a certain popular appeal.
Excuse me, Mr. Marshall. Ben Lackner is here and would like to see you.
Ask him to come in. Have you picked up any further details about the Lackner's financial setup?
Yeah, well, each got a substantial family inheritance. Enough to guarantee them the good life.
What about his land investments?
Well, he's had some good times and some bad. Looks like he's onto something good upstate, though.
Mr. Lackner.
Oh. Hello.
Mr. Marshall?
You know my associate?
Right.
Yes, how are things in Ojai?
Booming. I wish I were there.
Excuse me.
Sit down. Oh, you're going to be a witness.
Well, I can tell you I'm not looking forward to it. I can hear the stage whispers now. There's the guy who didn't know what he was setting himself up for. I didn't come here to talk about myself, Mr. Marshall. I'm very worried about Kay. I guess you've seen her.
We had a meeting.
So did we this morning. Very brief. I just stopped by the house to pick up a few things. I hadn't seen or called her in weeks, and I was really shocked at the change.
Change?
Oh, physical and mental. From the strain of all this publicity and facing the trial tomorrow. She looked, well, I don't know, really zapped.
Well, I can understand your concern, but it was your wife who brought suit.
I know. And I know that Whalen must be having just as rough a time. I just sort of hope that...
Yes?
Well, I'd sort of hoped there might be some sort of a compromise.
Well, if you're concerned about your wife's condition, and I'm sure you are, then I'd persuade her to drop this suit. It's that simple, Mr. Lackner.
Well, I tried this morning. But she won't consider it unless there's an out-of-court settlement. That man owes me something, she said. She means it.
I'm afraid that possibility was ruled out weeks ago. Unless she drops the suit, we have no alternative but to go to court tomorrow and disprove her charges.
Miss Hopkins, how long have you known Kay Lackner?
We were college roommates.
And have you maintained a close relationship over the years?
Yes, we have. I've always considered Kay to be my best friend.
Miss Hopkins, did Kay Lackner ever tell you anything about the quality of her marriage?
Often. That it was very happy. And everything I saw confirmed that.
And did she discuss with you their volunteering for the Institute?
Yes. She said Ben had persuaded her that a good thing could be even better.
And during the 5 months in which they were involved with Dr. Whalen, did you notice any changes in the relationship?
Yes, I did. Kay gradually cut herself off from most of her old friends, including me. And
Yes?
Ben started to drink rather heavily.
Did you discuss these changes with Mrs. Lackner?
I tried to. Kay was evasive until, well, an argument, quite a heavy argument she had with Ben at the playhouse.
Were you a witness to this argument?
Yes, I was.
Will you tell us the gist of the argument?
Ben accused Kay of being unfaithful.
Did he name the man?
Not then, but later that night, Kay told me she had had an affair with Dr. Whalen and Ben was leaving her.
Miss Hopkins, were you at any time associated with Dr. Whalen's Institute?
No.
Did you ever volunteer as a subject?
Yes.
And were you accepted?
No.
Did this color your feelings about Dr. Whalen and the Institute?
Under the circumstances, I guess I should consider myself lucky.
I have no further questions.
Kay, I think things... Mr. Marshall.
Mrs. Lackner, well, I'd be less than truthful if I said this wasn't a surprise.
Less than truthful. That's a phrase.
Come in, please.
Thank you. I know it's late.
I've been reading.
I just wanted to talk for a little while to someone.
Of course.
Thank you. Before I came over here, I drove over to the Whalens. I just stayed at their house. I got out of the car eventually and went over to the door, and I wanted to ring the doorbell, but I couldn't. I just couldn't.
Why did you want to see them?
I guess to say I was sorry about all of this.
Anything else?
Other things, just private things.
Well, if you like, I can phone them now and have them come over here.
Oh, no, please don't. I mean, if I couldn't make it with the little doorbell, I don't think I could make it by seeing them here. No.
Well, you're going to see them again in court tomorrow. Why not get together with them for a while tonight?
Tomorrow in court.
Can I get you some coffee?
No, thanks. I had a couple of drinks before I came over here. I was trying to forget about tomorrow in court. And I did for a little while. I thought about some nice things. It was restful.
Mrs. Lackner, if there's something you want to tell me, have to tell me.
I wish I could.
Do, please.
Well, there's one thing I can tell you. You said something about this trial being based on the character of the accused and the accuser. Well, the stark truth is that I don't have any character. I'm Mrs. Chameleon. I'm whatever any man wants me to be. I've learned that. Well, so much for my confession. I'm sorry to barge in.
Oh, bother. We should stay for a while.
No, I've got to get home. I mean, it's empty. Ben's not there. But it's someplace familiar. No, it's home. Oh, there's a chill out. It's nice. I like the cold.
You're in no condition to be driving right now. Let me get a jacket.
No, but my car.
I'll see that you get it tomorrow. Just sitting right here. All right?
As Beatrice would say, I'm gone, though I'm still here. You know, if a person knew enough Shakespeare, no matter what the situation, she'd always have a perfect exit line. Didn't she?
Your Honor, with the court's indulgence, we should like to request a short delay. The plaintiff, who is our first witness, has not yet arrived.
Very well. You said Kay was upset last night.
Maybe she's decided not to testify.
From what you told us, Owen, I have a hunch she's changed her mind.
Your Honor, may we approach the bench?
You may.
Your Honor.
Dr. Whalen, will you approach the bench, please? Dr. Whalen, I have a sad announcement to make. Mrs. Lackner is dead.
Dead? She killed herself.
No.
And she left a note putting the blame right where it belongs. On you, Whalen.
Does it help?
Not much. The waste, Jess. A sickening, pointless waste. She was young, attractive, intelligent, and to destroy it all in one terrible moment.
I know.
She came here last night begging for help, and she didn't get it. She needed a lifeline, and I tossed her a few empty cliches.
Well, you wanted to drive her home?
Well, I should have followed her.
I don't think it would have made any difference. Owen, you didn't know what she had in mind.
Well, she was confused, desperate. It never occurred to me that she'd take this way.
Because you'd never think of suicide as an answer.
Well, it isn't an answer. It's a refusal to keep looking for an answer. Surrender. But she had the alternative of dropping the suit. Why did she feel that was impossible? Surely a little humiliation and embarrassment would have been better than...
I talked to the sergeant in charge of the investigation. He said he'd release the suicide note to us after it's complete.
Have you seen it?
Lackner asked the police not to let anyone see it yet. It was found on a night table in an unsealed envelope. Charlie's name was on the envelope.
Handwritten?
And it was definitely Kay Lackner's handwriting. Of course, at this point, the suit will be dismissed. And that'll put Charlie in an even worse position. The charges against him won't be settled one way or the other.
Well, we got to keep digging, Jess. Some way to clear his name. The verdict was suicide. There was never any question about that. As soon as the investigation was completed, the police released the note. Here's a copy.
I'm going to read this out loud, all right?
If you want.
I can't face the courtroom and the questions tomorrow, so I'm taking the only alternative you've left me. You'll feel betrayed, but you'll accommodate, as usual, and find a way, I'm sure, to turn what I've done to your advantage. You're an expert manipulator, as I can testify, but now won't. The only purpose or meaning my life had, you've taken away. For what it's worth, I forgive you for everything. But enough. This lady will sigh no more, since men were deceivers ever. Sometimes remember me, your despairing Lady Disdain. Kay.
Charlie, did you ever refer to Kay Lackner as Lady Disdain?
No. She used that phrase once in connection with something. I can't remember what. What do we do now?
Well, the suit will be dismissed, but I'll be continuing our investigations. And I'm sure that I'll turn up evidence that will clear you, Charlie. Meantime, I'd suggest you two get away for a day or two.
Maybe we'll do that.
If you do decide to take a little vacation, just let me know where I can reach you.
We will. Owen, thanks for everything.
Bartlett's familiar quotations and the complete works of Shakespeare.
I've been going over this note of Kay Lackner's.
What, for quotations?
One of the last things she said to me was, if a person knew enough Shakespeare, no matter what situation she was in, she'd always have a perfect exit line.
Excuse me, Mr. Marshall, but Howard Porter is here and says he would like to see you. He says it is very important.
Ask him to come in.
Mr. Porter?
Gentlemen.
Mr. Porter? Mr. Porter?
I'll make this very brief, but I thought I owed you the courtesy of telling you in person I'm filing a new action against Dr. Whelan.
Well, who's the plaintiff?
Ben Lackner.
Well, you know the court won't permit him to pursue his wife's claim.
I agree. This is an entirely different matter. We're filing a wrongful death action against Dr. Whelan. We'll contend that he and he alone is culpable in the suicide of Kay Lackner.
Wrongful death. In other words, I'm responsible.
It's sad to say, but Lackner's suit could actually work to our advantage.
Owen, what is that supposed to mean?
Well, this new action puts us back into a court of law where hopefully we'll be able to clear you.
Great.
Charlie?
Owen, I'm sorry, I'm not quite with it. Julia walked out on me.
The note? Well, she'll think it threw me back, you know that, Charlie.
No, I don't. I tried to phone her. She won't see me or talk to me, so does this new suit or any of the rest of it really matter?
Now, look, and understand this. If you don't clear yourself of these libels, your reputation, your career, your future are down the drain.
The main part of my future is Julia. And her verdict's already in, isn't it? Guilty as charged.
Hi, Owen.
Hello, Julia.
Come in.
Thank you.
Sit down.
Oh, thanks.
I only agreed to this meeting, Owen, because you and I both know how persistent you can be.
I understand. And if I don't persuade you to reconsider, I promise I won't bother you again.
Well, you see, I've given my very best. And it just wasn't good enough. All right, I am facing that failure. I am coming to terms with it, but I have to do that on my own, alone.
Everyone's been so concerned about the pressures on Charlie. We haven't given much thought to the pressures on you.
The remarkable Julia, that's me. If my husband was constantly concerned with sexuality, involved with all these dozens of attractive, unhappy women, I would be so jealous. But not you. You're so unusual.
If I can join that chorus, you are.
No, I'm not, Owen. I'm not unusual. I'm not remarkable at all. I've been sick with jealousy at times. But somehow my faith in the man I loved, has always been enough to see me through.
Until Kay Lackner's accusations.
Well, no, even then I trusted him. It was the note. It was that angry, heartbreaking note, Owen. Just couldn't get it out of my mind. Every time I looked at him, I couldn't forget what that girl had written. I just had to get away.
I understand. So does Charlie.
Then why are you here?
Well, a new suit has been brought against Charlie by Ben Lackner. A wrongful death action.
The suicide?
Yes.
You mean he's really accusing Charlie of killing that girl?
They've got some powerful weapons, Julia.
The note?
Yes.
Well, the note exists, Owen. I can't change that.
I know Charlie is innocent. And Jess and I have some powerful weapons of our own to use in his defense. But we're missing one of the most important. You. Sitting near him. Being beside him. Julie, from what I've seen of you and Charlie, you've had something special all these years. Hang on to it, Julia.
I've covered every move Kay Lackner made on the night she died.
Do we have any witnesses to verify those moves?
The doorman, the desk clerk, the bellboy.
Excuse me, Mr. Marshall, but there's a Miss Hopkins here, and she's...
How dare you subpoena me?
Oh, come in, Miss Hopkins. It's all right for you.
You have no right to ask me to testify for the man who's responsible for Kay's death.
Well, we do have that right. But of course, that can be a two-edged sword. I have the feeling you're going to be a hostile witness.
You can count on that.
And there's no reason why you should feel you're betraying Kay.
You've been talking to my friends about me.
It's just routine pre-trial investigation.
Why? I don't see what you can possibly hope to gain by trampling on my privacy.
But we'll try to make that clear in court.
I want to ask you to reconsider calling me.
Sorry, the subpoena stands. I hope you won't find a long drive to court too inconvenient. The deputy who delivered your subpoena told us of your move.
Mr. Lackner, is this the note you found near your wife's body?
Yes, it is.
Plaintiff wishes to introduce this note into evidence as Plaintiff's Exhibit A.
So ordered.
I know this isn't easy for you, but would you tell the court what your feelings were when you found your wife that morning?
I was shocked and angry.
With whom were you angry?
Myself. I felt somehow I should have done more to help Kay. But mostly I was angry with them.
With the defendant and his counsel?
Yes.
Was there a specific reason for this anger?
Yes, there was. I realized the day before Kay killed herself just how desperate she was. So I went to see Mr. Marshall.
And what was the purpose of that visit?
I begged him to consider some sort of a compromise or a postponement, anything to make things easier for Kay.
And what was Mr. Marshall's response to this appeal?
He said he would see her in court. The next night, Kay killed herself.
With the court's permission, Mr. Lackner, your wife's death was a very sad fact. A very sad fact. Obviously, I couldn't foresee it, nor perhaps could you. She was a very troubled young woman. And I think I know the reason why. Now, you've testified how you and your wife volunteered at the Institute, the results of that experiment, and your separation. Now, whose decision was it to sue Dr. Whalen?
It was Kay's decision.
Did she discuss that decision with you at any time?
No, she didn't.
To your knowledge, did she ever need money for any reason?
Kay always needed money, but as far as I know, there was no special problem.
Was she planning to invest in your new land development at Ojai?
No, she had no interest in that.
But you are trying to capitalize a rather large investment there, aren't you?
Yes, but Kay wasn't involved.
Now, Mr. Lackner, you've testified how distressed your wife became when the suit against Dr. Whalen was about to come to trial. Was her distress caused by the attendant publicity?
Yes.
Was there any other reason for the distress?
That was reason enough.
At about that same time, did your wife make a disturbing discovery about a relationship between you and another woman, her friend, Marge Hopkins?
Kay thought there was something between Marge and me. But it was because she was so upset with the trial she couldn't think straight.
Now, Mr. Lackner, you have testified that this is the note you found in the envelope addressed to Dr. Whalen. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
I ask you to remember that you are under oath and that the penalty for perjury can be severe.
Your Honor, counsel is attempting to intimidate the witness.
Mr. Marshall, you will confine yourself to cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, if, as you say, this note was intended for Dr. Whalen, what happened to the note that your wife wrote to you? Did your wife write you a note and deliver it to the desk of your hotel on the night of her death, Mr. Lackner?
Witness will answer the question.
Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Marshall is assuming facts not in evidence. There's no proof of the existence of such a note.
At the proper time, the defense will produce witnesses. The desk clerk who accepted the note from Mrs. Lackner, the bellboy who delivered the note to Mr. Lackner's room.
Objection overruled.
Was there such a note?
Yes.
And what happened to it?
I threw it away. It's just a thank you for something I had done. It had no connection with Kay's death, none.
You and your wife met in Philadelphia, is that correct?
Yes, we met at a community playhouse there.
You shared an enthusiasm for amateur theater.
Yes?
And you appeared on the stage there together?
Yes?
Often?
Several times.
Were you married on the stage?
That's right.
In the costumes of the play in which you were then appearing?
Yes.
What was the name of that play?
I don't remember.
Could it have been William Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing?
Yes, I guess it was.
What was the name of the character you were playing?
Benedict.
And Mrs. Lackner's character?
Beatrice.
Mr. Lackner, in this note, there are two references to that play, Much Ado About Nothing. References which would be meaningless to Dr. Whalen, since he would have no possible reason to connect Mrs. Lackner with that play, but references which would be very meaningful to you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, this note is signed, Your Despairing Lady Disdain. Doesn't Benedict call Beatrice, my dear Lady Disdain? And wasn't that your private name for your wife? And the paraphrase, this lady will sigh no more, since men were deceivers ever. Isn't that also a quote from the same play?
I don't know.
Was this note intended for you, Mr. Lackner, and not for Dr. Whalen?
No, I told you about the note that Kay sent to me. Now, what's all this talk about much ado? What does it prove? She was a very disturbed and desperate woman, so she remembered some lines from a play.
Is that a wedding ring you're wearing?
Yes.
Did your wife wear a matching band?
Yes.
What is inscribed in that ring? The inscription in your wife's ring reads Beatrice. What does yours read, Mr. Lackner? Benedict? Does it?
Yes.
And you still deny the significance of the two references to that play in this note? Is this not the second page of the note that your wife intended for you and only for you? Mr. Lackner?
Yeah. Yes, she wrote it to me. As soon as I got it, I went to the house, but it was too late. I never thought she'd do anything like that.
But when she did, you looked to see what advantage you could make of it. And so you took the note of apology she had left for Dr. Whalen out of its unsealed envelope
and substituted this.
Your Honor, in view of these developments, we respectfully request a brief recess while I confer with my client.
Granted. Court will reconvene in 20 minutes.
Whalen just sent me in the mail an autographed copy of his new book.
Well, who knows, Frida? It may change your entire married life.
I am perfectly content with the status quo, thank you, so I think I'll just keep this here at the office.
Well, good. Then I can dip into it between cases.
Oh, isn't it nice to see them smiling again? Now, why in the world would Kay Lackner agree to such a dirty scheme?
Oh, she loved Ben. She thought he loved her. He convinced her that it would never go to court, that some insurance company would pay off. Charlie wouldn't get hurt. Ben would get the capital he needed.
She said it all in the note. Ben was an expert manipulator.
But unable to keep his promises. We denied them an out-of-court settlement. She saw Charlie being ruined by the publicity.
And finally, she was faced with committing perjury. And maybe she would have done even that if she hadn't found out about that affair with Marge Hopkins.
Ah, but you see, he was using her. He was using her. Isn't that just like a man? With a few happy exceptions.
This is Mr. T, cordially inviting you to join Hannibal, Howlin' Mad Murdoch, Face Man, and me in the A-Team, coming up next, right here in TV Land.